Brian is being remote, huh? Mm-hmm.
He emailed, and Brian can speak for himself, but he did email us an excuse for second. It's a very good excuse.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, Brian.
Hey, Brian.
All right, yeah, I believe that we're live, and right now we're showing the agenda to the live stream. I'm showing the agenda because I didn't print out any current copies, so my apologies.
That's okay. I have a copy in front of me, so I'm all right. I don't know what's everybody else. They can read the screen.
Just tell me what you're saying.
Okay. We may as well get on. Let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is jump the agenda and give our friend Bartok a break.
So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Bartek Starda. I'm the Director of Housing Initiatives for the City of Kingston.
Okay, let me interrupt you.
Yes.
First, let's go around and do introductions. I forgot to do that. I'm Bob Dennison, the Chair of the Complete Streets Advisory Council.
Tom Rosebold, Vice Chair.
Hi, I'm Ellie Bernstein of Cities Environmental Specialists.
I'm Emily Flynn. I'm the Director of Health and Wellness for the City of Kingston. Folks on Zoom, give us a chat if you can't hear us, please. I'll try to fix that.
Claudette Ford, Complete Streets Advisory Council.
Paul Stangus, member of the council.
Here from the Conservation Advisory Council.
Okay.
Julie Melville, Sustainability Coordinator for the city. Guest.
You guess. We hope. And Bartok.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Bartok, go.
Wait, sorry, did you want to introduce them?
Yeah, I forgot there. I keep forgetting there's remote people. Ryan.
Hey, everyone. Brian Slack, Principal Transportation Planner and Coordinator of Traffic Safety for Ulster County and Ulster County Transportation Council.
Elizabeth.
Yes, I am a resident of Kingston from February of 21 and was instrumental in getting Bluestone into another block on the Complete Street, Franklin Street project. We got some residents together and lobbied the city and got that. So that got me interested in Complete Streets. So I don't have any transportation background. I'm a resident who uses the city.
But you're walking bike. And Michael.
I am a multimodal transport advocate, low carbon transport advocate in Kingston, and here as a citizen.
Okay. And our late joiner, member, go ahead, Kristen.
I'm sorry. I'm Kristen Wilson. I work at ROCCO as the Vice President of Community Development and been involved with Complete Streets for a long time in Kingston.
And you're a member of the council.
Yes.
Okay, now, Bartok.
Yes. As I mentioned, I'm the Director of Housing Initiatives. I'm also leading the rezoning of the city that's currently in process. We had a first draft, as you know, that was released in May and June. Feedback to that draft was due on July 1st. This council provided feedback on that draft. We released the second draft on August 29th, and we responded to the feedback that was received from this council, and we did make a few changes based on that feedback. The second draft is out now, and comments are due on September 30th. The zoning consultants and myself included would be willing to meet with any members of the council if they'd like to discuss our response to your feedback and any changes that were made between now and the 30th. Just wanted to raise that possibility if there is a desire for additional discussion. Bob, I don't know if you wanted to raise any particular points.
Well, you did address this draft does address a number of the comments that the council made. And I haven't really talked to the council about this because I just read the last couple of days. One of the things I'm going to suggest before the 30th, and I assume we'll see if my fellow council members agree or think it's a crazy suggestion. It's section 405.22 is called street design standards. And what I'm going to suggest is that be changed to street design guidelines. And my experience is, if you remember the Asheville Green Book, which everybody hates in the world, the standards for, I was on the committee that wrote it, and one of the things that was always a frustration for us is that in the first paragraph, it says these are guidelines. And nobody ever thought of them as guidelines. They thought of them as a gospel. And we did more battle over people saying, no, the Green Book says you have to do it this way, over saying, no, they're guidelines and you need to use judgment and blah, blah, blah. So just as to head off a potential problem in the future, if the street design standards are called guidelines, you can then say, use your professional judgment, do the right thing. You're not married to these are not cast in stone. That came on me yesterday after I read the stuff. I don't know what other council members think about that in the context of our other comments, which were pretty well addressed, I think.
Yeah, I haven't read through the revisions yet. Just got back from 1,200-mile bicycle ride, so that wasn't high on my list fine. But I do agree with this legal change. I think that's problematic, the way it is.
Yeah, we don't want people, yeah. The comments have been addressed individually in this draft of the response to the standards. And I think they did a pretty good job of that. You know, they did address everything. They didn't, say yes to everything, and I wouldn't expect them to, but they did address it. So if you get a few minutes, you don't have to, you can just, there is a section of comments, the comments that they addressed, so you don't have to read the whole mess to get to that.
I'm not sure if I agree with the guidelines until I get a chance to, I haven't had a chance to read through the new draft yet either, so.
You're saying their standards or their,
I'm not sure if I
I'll take
agree
a
with
look.
your suggestion yet or
oh,
not.
okay, all right, well, take a look.
But yeah,
Right.
once I take a look
Yeah.
at it again, then
Right.
I'll,
Yeah.
I feel like I want to agree.
Okay.
But I just want to look at the.
I want you to have the time necessary to take a look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say our intention is for these to be guidelines.
And and I expect that even though it's outside of our venue or outside of our wheelhouse, the architectural standards I would expect would be treated the same way. You know, there's some prescriptive architectural stuff in there that, historically, you don't find design standards for buildings or for streets in a zoning ordinance. So it's kind of interesting to see it. But as long as they're guidelines and not prescriptive, you can probably live with it, in my view. But the
Yeah, I think
architectural,
that's a point of
Architectural
great
is pretty
debate,
specific.
actually, because maybe, I don't know, is it, just if, I guess what I worry a little bit about guidelines is that professional judgment can really depend on who's in power at the moment. And so then
well,
professional judgment could go very far away from keeping
They can,
guidelines.
but my view is
So
that-
that's my,
yeah, this is the argument I used to use in Ashton as well. Professional judgment by a professional engineer, licensed to practice engineering, yeah, it can go, but it needs to be defensible, and correct, and they're on the hook for it. It isn't just judgment by Joe Blow. I mean,
so, but then who would be the professionals for the architectural standards?
registrar architect.
Okay, but I don't know if we have that, like, our building department would be
Yeah,
the
so
people,
I mean, for the architectural standard, is planning department,
yeah,
and the planning department does have funds for consultancies. So if they need architectural advice, they would get it through that fashion. For the city engineer, in our case, for street designs, it's the judgment of the city engineer.
yeah.
And, I'm confident in John's judgment about another PE's traffic stuff. I mean, he's a traffic guy.
Oh, yeah, I feel confident in John, I'm just thinking about the long, like, what if there's somebody else that we're not as confident in, that's-
And an architect, if an architect wants to take a position, then I think it would be a very interesting conversation, I think, one term, but. So that was one comment, but we should look at them, and if we had other comments, we have until the 30th to submit them. Last time we did them virtually, we circulated them among us, with email. And besides a memo, and I expect we would do this again, because we're not going to meet again before the 30th. So take a few minutes when you're bored, read them. They're fascinating. So, actually,
There's a
this
meeting tomorrow, actually, here.
Yes,
I'm gonna
there is.
attend that.
Good idea, yeah.
Yes.
4
it's,
o'clock would be conducted.
tomorrow at 6 o'clock here. It's also listen in via Zoom.
Okay, good. So if you need to disappear to do other important things, knowing that you're a busy guy.
Thank you.
Okay, some of this stuff is procedural, and I don't want to, our visitors might be here for a purpose, and I don't want to have to drag you through when we're going to meet next year, for example. So my question is, what's up?
Well, my name is Ellie Gartenstein. I work for Julie in the Sustainability Office. I'm here to talk to you guys about rideshare,
Okay.
e-bikes, e-bike rideshare, scooter rideshare programs, and just incorporating that into your objectives and goals as a council, because I understand that this is part of kind of like your larger agenda in a way. So Emily sent me over a very helpful packet, read it a couple months ago, so it's a little foggy at this point, but essentially just guidelines for enacting this kind of program in a municipality in New York. There's like some statewide regulations, and you need to pass individual laws in your municipality to make e-bike street legal, but then also, implement these regulations. And somebody also sent me this, which you all must have drafted together from the template in that guidance document with some suggestions. So essentially, I wanted to go ahead and start moving on this, hopefully get it passed, so that we can just begin working on this program, start doing community engagement, see what the community actually wants, because none of this is going to be possible unless we pass this law. But before doing so, I just wanted to talk to you guys, because you are the ones who drafted this. See if anyone has any specific issues or concerns or anything. Excuse me. A little background on this though. We started looking into this around May. We had the Earth Fair in Forsyth Park in May, and we hosted B Weekend, this is Dutch e-bike rideshare group. They came, and event goers were able to do demonstrations on the e-bikes, take them for a loop around the park, around Heat Stadium, and they submitted feedback in the form of a survey, which is essentially, would you like to see this in your community? Where would you like to see this in your community? Do you have any concerns, etc.? Overall, feedback was pretty positive. People were really excited about that. People liked the bikes, people liked the idea of a shared system. There were concerns obviously about safety and traffic enforcement and kind of like the standard bike concerns, but I feel like overall it was supported by the community members who took the survey. So since then, there's been some internal interest in progressing this, and like I said, the first step will be passing this law. So I just want to talk to you guys, see if anyone has any specific interest in the program, specific concerns about the program. There's some little nuances that I guess we've been having conversations about, whether we want, scooters and bikes, whether we want just bikes, whether we want it docked, whether we want it dockless, whether we want it to be the kind of program where an entity like B Weekend, not necessarily B Weekend, but an entity like B Weekend comes in and just installs everything and operates it themselves and takes the profits themselves, or how heavily we want to be involved. There's a lot of factors here, so I just wanted to kind of open up the floor for discussion, see what's going on in the council with discussion about this sort of thing.
No, and we thought about this some time ago. John, you were a big, one was very concerned with this, or involved in this.
And after my trip,
Do
I
you
saw even more things that concerned me, because I was in a lot of cities. I went through Cleveland, Akron, Canton, Washington, DC. And I mean, I saw abandoned scooters and bicycles miles down the trail.
Yeah.
And piles of them on the streets. Most of these were, like the scooters, I don't think any of those were dock systems. They were just random drop-off pickup.
When we looked at it, our recommendation was dock.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're aiming for as well.
And
You know.
and The other thing that jumped out at me, places like Canton, that used to be a real going concern. I don't remember what the population was, but I was in a hotel a couple doors down from the county office building, and most of Canton is boarded up, high rises, nothing in them. All the storefronts closed, a lot of restaurants, AAA offices are all gone. And they had dockless scooters around. And I only saw one person ride them in 3 days. But these things are sitting there. And I'm looking at the size of these cities that I went into. The only place I saw a lot of usage was Washington DC.
Yeah, the scooters are wilder.
Yeah, it's
For
like
just
Wild
scooters?
West down here.
Or for bikes too?
Scooters,
Just
both. Both. And I keep coming back to the idea that I can't see a vendor making an economic investment in Kingston in a dock system. I don't think we've got the user base for it. I mean, I was in much bigger cities and saw a lot of, inventory sitting around. And the dockless systems, they were a trip hazard in some areas. Obviously Washington DC was full of tourists and they just went wherever they wanted. I mean, you can ride on the sidewalks down there. Plus they have separated bike lanes, regular bike lanes, and the streets. And the scooters and the bikes were everywhere you can imagine. I just have a lot of trouble envisioning a dock system company being willing to make that investment here.
Yeah.
Even if we manage to get, Hurley and Town of Ulster and maybe New Paltz, kind of a regional system versus just a city system.
We had that conversation with Big League and we asked that question just explicitly, like, what makes this worth it to you? What is the percentage of members that make it worth it to you? And how do you figure out when you're evaluating a municipality, how many dock systems you need, how many bikes you need? And they gave us a number and they said.
So it's like 1% of the population using it or something?
0.55%
Really low.
or something that they calculated. And they suggested that for our town, it would only be like 2 or 3 docks.
Could you,
With only like 20 or 25 bikes.
could you make it part of UCAT in any way? Is there funding or can you expand UCAT in that direction?
So one of the things that came up was, and I don't know if they asked or we asked about, would we be willing to do it as a shared system with Town of Ulster, for instance? Because like, if you could go from here to the mall, it's much different than if you can go from here to the edge of Kingston and have to leave the bike there.
Right.
Or what happens if you want to go to the mall on the bike and suddenly you're out of Kingston? But that gets to each individual municipality having to pass this legislation as well. And our initial conversation and thought with the administration was that we need to take care of our own house first and, stay within Kingston and manage what we've got going on. And if it becomes this like amazing, let's go bigger, then talk to the adjoining communities. But again, like, that was the first thing that came to my mind also, like, what could possibly make this worth it to you? And they said that they have this company in particular, which is a big company.
What is it?
BWegon, BWegon, they're out of Canada.
Okay.
And they came to Canada with their stuff and they did all this, and obviously there's Lime and lots of others that do things in the US, but, it would be, they suggested a scaled system. And it also then changes based on, as Ellie was saying, whether the city invests in the infrastructure or whether we allow them to be using our space and we don't actually invest in the actual infrastructure, they're just using our space, in which case we contract with them.
So then there's no money put in from the city, but then they have the ability to use their docks as advertisement for like whatever they want.
Right.
And I don't believe, I might be wrong, but I don't believe that the city would have any control over advertisement, regulations when they are and are not allowed to be used, you know, because some of the systems lock at night. I don't think the city would have much say in location beyond us giving them permission to use our sites and stuff like that. So that's kind of like the other option.
I think as a first step, working with a company like that and letting them try it out on their dime
Mhm.
would, you know, would see if it worked, because there's other, I mean, I agree that perhaps the docks are the best, but there's other issues to consider. I went to a conference in May in Washington DC and rode around on the scooters a lot, which I love them personally.
You like the scooters more than the bikes?
Well, yeah, just if you're a pedestrian, you just want to go a mile or something, or get around for fun. The bikes, it's a whole thing, you have a helmet. I mean, I guess you're supposed to have a helmet on scooters too, but the scooters that I rode in Washington, they were programmed to go very slow. Like, we were near the mall and my scooter wouldn't move. I had to like push it.
And also shut off, right?
Yeah. And so, so, yeah, that could be similar. There could be certain places, areas where we think that's appropriate in Kingston. But even if the rule is that you're not supposed to ride the scooter on the sidewalk or on the bike lane, or, you know, whatever the rules are, nobody's gonna follow them.
Yeah.
So
Claudette,
that's,
And then Michael.
Okay, Claudette, and then Michael. Claudette.
Okay, I have a question about the advertising. One, is this like through a kiosk, that where this would be docked? That's where their advertising would be? Is it lit? Is it neon? And there are sometimes restrictions that can be put on. They can't just advertise anything that they want. Prior experience I had with bus kiosks and similar companies that were basically, we'll do everything you want as long as we can have the advertising, because that's really where they make their money. We had to start kind of looking at that because there were certain things, and this was in Oakland, California specifically at this point. We did not want to advertise. Okay, we understood that they would get probably more money for it, but it was not the message we were trying to put out into the community. So I am concerned about if these are docking stations, what is the advertising going to look like? What are they looking at in terms of money? What are they charging? And is it really worth giving them free advertising rights?
Basically, sound like a billboard.
Well, it is a billboard. I mean, basically, it is a billboard.
Perhaps that could be dictated in the legislation and or the contract.
Because in the future, it'll be marijuana dispensaries. That's the thing you might not want, you know.
Exactly. I'm just saying, I don't know what you might want to restrict, but I just think you've got to kind of think about that, because they will tell you, oh, we can pay for this all with advertisement. But in your legislation and in what you write, the restrictions that you write into your legislation might mean that they get less ad revenue, and therefore they're going to be pulling back on certain things. So I'm curious.
Michael's been waiting.
Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering if there's been any sort of investigation of what's happening in Dutchess County, and Bard College has a bike share system, and what sort of business model those systems use. There's a move in several cities to package together several micromobility shared systems under the guise of something called Universal Basic Mobility, which links to transit and then would make sense to link to UCAT. And there are nonprofit models that exist, so that the question of advertising then is less relevant in those models. So I wonder if you've looked into those three types of business models that exist.
No, I haven't. What was that you said? Universal what transit?
Universal Basic Mobility. There are about 4 or 5 places in the US that are piloting that kind of approach, where there are several types of micromobility systems that users can use under the theory that everyone should be able to get around without needing a car. And so then what does that mean? What sort of mobility needs to be provided? And then the nonprofit model, it existed in Buffalo. Eventually it was sold off, and it existed in Minneapolis. It was also sold off. But I'm wondering if there's still some relevance to the nonprofit model for bike share.
I haven't looked into that, but I will. Profit. Do you know who it was sold off to?
In the case of Minneapolis, to motivate and then lift. In the case of Buffalo, it was sold off to, it used to be called Social Bikes, and then it was sold off to Jump, which was acquired by Uber, and then sold off to Line.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Lime, I had occasion to deal with the shared system in Florida around Fort Pierce, which is really not a big area. And I was told that their revenue, significant portion of the revenue came from selling your data. You signed up and you did a whole thing where you had to sign up online and they took your data.
Nobody likes that.
Yeah, and then they sold your data and that's how they made their money. Because it was not, it's not a dense area. So, your usage was probably not what they had hoped, but people sign up from all over and that was their model. So it might be worth a question.
Yeah, I don't think that we would want to involve an organization that would sell our systems.
question.
That,
Right.
Another thought that I had is, I know that VIA and Ulster County applied for the grant. We don't know if they got it or not. The NYSERDA.
They got the first round of it.
They got the first round.
Oh, okay.
And then they resubmitted like their second.
Oh, I know that.
I think in June. I want to say June. So Ulster County, for those of you who might not know what I'm talking about, Ulster County is applying for an NYSERDA prize. Well, Brian's online, he might know more about it. They're applying for it, it's like a clean energy transportation prize. And it's to do sort of managed mobility and on-demand transit services, like beyond the regular UCAT system. But the VIA, the company, they potentially might have bike share or scooter systems. And if they're going to be looking at this managed, I forgot what it's called, managed mobility or on-demand, and connections between places that are off of the UCAT line, perhaps this would be another area for them to look at if they win the prize. I think they'd find out soon.
Yeah, I can comment on that. We were not successful with that grant, unfortunately. We just received word about 2 weeks ago. That's not public information necessarily. But with the change in administration that we're dealing with at the county right now, I don't think anybody's had the opportunity to really get the word out. But so that's unfortunate that we did not receive that grant. But a lot's been talked about. Michael raised some really good points. Universal basic mobility. That's the gold standard, right? That's what we're really working toward. That we would like to see all of our transit systems in New York State be able to offer, basic fixed route transit up the spines, the major corridors, then micro transit, which is what we were applying for through VIA, and then micro mobility to do that first mile, last mile connection. That makes, if we can do that, we will have accomplished so much. But right now, UCAT is in a state of essentially restructuring as we emerge from the pandemic, and we'll be working very likely with, if not via a very similar firm in the next 12 months to do additional planning to improve the UCAT fixed route system, essentially doing route optimization and improving scheduling. But we've got a lot of work to do at the county right now. And I'll be perfectly honest, that micromobility is not really ranking very high right now because we just got so many other fires that we are honestly trying to put out. But microtransit is going to play a role in the future in Ulster County. I'm pretty confident that that's going to be the case because I think it can really offer a lot of advantages that fixed route transit is just unable to provide. And, we originally had conceived of a demand response system serving our fixed route system in the city of Kingston when UCAT took over Kingston City Bus. And that fell flat on its face. It did not work well at all. That's where VIA offers what is essentially software as a service. And their technology is vastly superior to any competitors out there, where people can really manage their trips through VIA software. It's very dynamic. So I look forward to working more and learning more on this subject, but for the time being, we don't have any major breakthroughs, but there'll be more to come, I think. I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead, John.
There's another model that I haven't seen or heard discussed here. If you go up into the Capital District, Schenectady, CDPHP, the health insurance company, they actually have a bike share system that they're sponsoring. So the bikes have CDPHP advertising on, but that's it, and it's a docked system. And, perhaps somebody like CDPHP might be willing to sponsor a system around here.
Citibank, this New York City bike share, Citibank.
Yeah.
So all this calls to the bottom line, which is this council supportive of moving forward the legislation to permit this to happen? And also, can I ask, when you took it up several years ago, is there a reason why you didn't continue with it?
Well, no, we were gonna send it to the mayor to say, we think you need to do some stuff on this, and you need to think about this. Well, we can blame Greg if we want, because he's done. Greg was great. I would, Greg was a great asset, and I was being facetious. No, there isn't any real reason that we decided not to do this again. We didn't really get an appetite from the council members that were involved a little bit, so we kind of let it go.
Okay, but there was nothing that stopped it,
No,
no opposition.
No, not that I'm aware of. I think everybody's in favor of it.
I think as long as it's fleshed out correctly.
Right. The other piece is, there was some discussion, if memory serves, about legislation that would enable motorized bikes on pathways, right? Is that correct?
The parks.
Parks, and apparently they're prohibited.
The multi-use trails that are run by the municipality.
And we don't think that they should be prohibited for a couple of reasons. One is you can't enforce it.
Right.
So there may be a necessity to do some legislation that will permit motorized e-bikes, if you will, e-scooters, because people are doing it anyway. I mean, they're doing it, so you're not gonna, it's not like it's gonna change anything.
But then let's be careful about the motorized language.
Right,
You mean probably electric
Right.
assisted vehicles.
class 1 or 2.
I suspect the Common Council would push really hard back on any language that would support ATVs on the trails.
Oh, no. I would say class 1 or 2 e-bikes, maybe class 3 because I like them, but class 1 or 2 e-bikes. Well,
That's probably what.
Well, that would be in conflict with New York State's legislation, because they limit the class 3s to New York City.
I know. So class 1 and 2,
Yeah.
but there's class 3s out there.
Well, yeah, and there's scooters around town that are probably capable of 30 plus miles an hour.
Right. So,
What's the timeline for the ordinance?
Really no timeline. If we have support from this council, probably Climate Smart, Conservation Advisory Council, I can go ahead with this.
Yeah.
Live well, I can go ahead with this whenever we're ready, essentially.
I would guess one thing that there's probably a seasonal piece to this, because I think, our vendors may not be interested in talking about this in November or December or February. Yeah. But then they want to talk about that, but they obviously won't do anything until.
Yeah. We can always pass this and then it's passed, it's allowed, and then we can enter into conversation with vendors or even submit, put out RFPs or whatever in the spring when it's more appealing to
Actually, I think vendors would be interested in the winter.
Yeah.
To get them.
Yeah, I feel like this is good timing in order to prepare for next year, but also, I can't remember when we talked to you, I mean, they obviously operate, weekend operates in Canada, so I don't remember.
So cold may not bother.
Yeah.
Michael wanted to add that Montreal has a modular bike share system that is removed during the big snow season.
You take it out.
Removed.
Now, New York City's, they don't. It's there.
Advice.
And Burlington, I know Burlington has one, and Burlington has a very active bike commuter community, and it's a huge bike place, and I think they do not take it up in the winter. I think that it's out there.
Yeah, I think expecting us to remove them in the winter would probably be too much of a burden on whoever would be responsible for that, whether it be the rideshare company like Beavigan or city staff. I don't think that would
Well,
work.
the vendor's gonna have to have, I have a niece that was a bike mechanic for the Philadelphia system. She's no longer, but they worked year round, and in winter, you know, there were some that they had to move around, and you know, and the challenge to keeping them going was a little more in the winter, but they didn't stop. But that's a piece of it, who's gonna take care of these? They need staff, they need some mechanics, they need some people who move the bikes around, you know, stuff.
I think when we talked to Beavigan's the only vendor we really talked to about this, so this is just how they operate. I don't know how other vendors operate as a whole. But when we talked to Beavigan, they said that when they bring these systems into municipalities, they do hire local staff,
Right.
at least one.
Right.
So they would have somebody locally to take care of them.
We had another organization that approached the city. I have those files in front of me right now, but I can connect you with them. They also said that they would hire someone local who would be managing.
And that was Bird.
That was worth. Thank you very much.
Okay, so Bird did talk to the city at one time, years ago, so a couple years.
And they still email me every couple of months saying we're still interested, so.
They were scooters or bikes?
They were scooters.
And bikes?
No, just scooters, just scooters.
Yeah.
So that's just like a question I have, like overall, is everybody like more pro scooter, more pro bike? What do you wanna see? Like if this was gonna come
Can
to
you
fruition.
dock scooters? I've only seen them where you just basically leave them everywhere.
I don't know, you don't see this? I'm not a fan of the dockless system, that's like a personal anecdotal opinion, you know, I think that they kind of get in the way, you know, you see them like on the streets, everybody has. So if scooters are dockable, I think scooters are a good option, but if they're not dockable, I can't imagine that anyone is gonna be happy driving down Broadway and having to go on a scooter.
Or just, you know, the sidewalks are often so
Yeah.
small here anyway.
Well, that was another observation I had from my trip. Where these systems were installed, their sidewalks are probably 2 to 3 times wider than ours. There's actually some place to put docks.
Yeah,
There's some place to park these scooters.
that was another issue that we talked about, where exactly these docks would be. It looks like they would have to be in places like municipal lots, the stadium, parks, stuff like that. We don't really have the sidewalk space to put them,
In
say.
New York City,
New
they
York City,
reclaim
they
streets,
take
they can
parking
take a
spaces.
parking space or two.
They don't put them on
Yeah.
the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Michael says again, Bixie Montreal is a nonprofit, which is interesting. I don't know about that.
But another problem in New York City, which is something to consider, is that some store owners did not like them being in front of their store. No, some did. I mean, so I suppose it depends on your store.
Yeah,
If you're a convenience store, I don't think you mind, I think if you're a clothes
It's
store.
right, you're right.
yeah.
I mean, I think scooters are gonna end up on the bike, they're gonna end up on the sidewalks and the streets.
Yeah.
Or at least the sidewalks, the new ones, Franklin, Broadway, Henry next year. So I don't think there's anything we can do to really manage that. So that's just a consideration.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that when I was in Washington DC, I rode a scooter on the sidewalk, I rode it on the street. But there's some personal responsibility there, yeah.
You didn't fall off and get hurt.
No, but there were moments where I was like, wow, I think maybe I'm going a little too fast, like I should maybe slow
Well,
down.
you know,
So there's
there's a history of, when I was around, not many years ago, skateboards were new. And skateboards were controversial. You know, people used to go on the street with skateboards, and in fact, the town that I grew up in, they were prohibited, they were banned. You know, skateboards were not allowed anywhere, because they were afraid kids would fall off and break their wrists or whatever.
And they did.
And they did, and they survived, and now skateboards are not banned anywhere. So, you know, there's a potential backlash to things like the scooter where people are gonna say, look, all these people are gonna be injured, it's a terrible idea, we shouldn't do it. So you should just be cognizant of that possibility.
I would anticipate a backlash for bikes as well. Just because I think that bike safety is a big concern in the community.
Well, the guy who died on the Empire State Trail, that was an e-bike.
Oh, was it?
So I think there will be a backlash, there is already a backlash against bikes, right? So I don't think that
The
that's.
disabled community is gonna have a big problem
Yeah.
with scooters and bikes, especially on the streets. And people with strollers or whatever, the sidewalks in Kingston, they're not very wide. And, they're uneven. So that is gonna be a problem as a limited sighted person. I mean, my biggest thing is, you know, I have a hard enough time trying to walk on the sidewalks in Kingston, trying to argue with, or be cognizant of, you know, a scooter zooming past me without enough space, a bike zooming past me without enough space is gonna be an issue. So just
Like on the sidewalk.
on the sidewalks.
Not on the.
Not on the streets, on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
So we support them, we support the
Yeah,
idea,
yeah.
it's a good idea.
It's a good idea.
I think scooters are a little scarier than bikes, in my opinion, it's a personal opinion. But I think passing legislation would be a good idea.
Okay,
That's good.
fantastic.
Before you, go ahead.
Oh, I'll probably just, I haven't really run through this and give my own comments or
You haven't
anything.
looked at it I haven't looked at it for,
Yeah, so I'm just gonna go through this,
Sure.
Juliana will go through this,
Yeah.
we'll do a couple drafts, send it to you, send it to a few
Sure.
other groups and
Yeah.
get moving on it.
great. Before you guys leave, there's one other thing on the agenda that I'm gonna jump around because I think you'd be interested in it and maybe could be advocates for it. And that's the new business, the City of Newburgh Sidewalk District Study. Well, I'm told, and I don't know much about this, I'm trying to think who told me. I could blame Brian.
Yes, I think Brian and I heard that.
Okay, so it's your guys' fault.
Yeah.
We've for a long time talked about the sidewalk district in the city of Kingston at this council. We think that the sidewalks need work and that's a mechanism that it can get done. It's the model that's used in Ithaca, it's the model that's used in Burlington, and now Newburgh is studying. So our plan is to watch this study and hopefully they'll have the right answer and we can embrace it and we can use it to encourage the common council and others to think about the horrible thought of creating an improvement district citywide, which will terrorize them. I'm sure they'll be very nervous about this, to do sidewalk improvements. So that we can have some sort of a fund and probably some staff, which comes along with it. At least that's what happened in Ithaca and in Burlington. As Kristen knows better than most. For Kingston, you know, our sidewalks clearly need it. Emily's pedestrian bicycle study will give us the basis for a Americans with Disability Act transition plan, which is required by the feds. We're required to have a plan to transition our sidewalk system into one that is ADA compatible. We have not done that in the city. And nobody's really complained yet, but
I wouldn't say so. I say that the complaints have fallen on deaf ears.
Nobody filed a lawsuit.
nobody's sued.
And quite honestly, coming from cities where people file lawsuits all the time, I am very surprised. I really am.
Well, I think lawsuits have been filed for individual.
But
Either way, I'm just saying, I'm
But
surprised.
not a lawsuit on the scale of, hey, the city hasn't
Has a control to
created
the
a
ADA.
transition on it.
You know, conceivably, here's what's happened in other municipalities, and I think it happened in one that you were involved in. If you get a ADA suit against the city for not complying with the Americans with Disabilities Act and not having a transition plan, a judge gets involved.
Can I clarify? We do have a transition plan. It's not a good one.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that part either. I believe that we do have a transition plan, but the bike ped master plan, it's going to be a
They're
better.
gonna be real, right?
Yes, yeah.
So what happens is the judge gets involved and the judge says, you don't have.
The same degree and all of a
Right.
sudden you got a bigger problem.
And so from now till the end of time, you're gonna have to devote this percentage of your municipal budget to sidewalks. And we've seen that happen in municipalities and, and then you're stuck with whatever number the judge decides is a good number,
But better sidewalks.
but better sidewalks.
Yes.
Right, that's the good.
You actually get to a walkable city.
Right. So, it would be better if you did it without a judge, which would be our goal. But somebody could,
So Bob, what is the, where are we with the sidewalk district? I mean, can we,
well, you know, we've done.
we've studied it,
We
we
studied
know
it, we did a lot of work, we did a bunch of recommendations,
We
I
just-
think that's kind of where we're at.
need to move it forward.
Right.
What would that involve?
Well, we have to sit down with, well, I would expect we'd sit down with the mayor and say, we'd like to move this forward, and then take it to the common council.
But are you saying that you're observing what Newburgh is doing, waiting to see what the best practices, or are you saying go concurrently with Newburgh?
I would, well,
I wouldn't wait for Newburgh.
Yeah,
I think going on our own would be,
I honestly think that Newburgh might be doing that because I suggested it to them.
it was a good suggestion. It was a good suggestion.
I don't know that
Right,
for
right.
sure, but many months ago, I just mentioned that we were doing one,
Mhm.
or that we were studying one.
Yeah.
And so they just might be, I don't know how functional they are.
Yeah, Newburgh has got some problems.
Yeah,
Well, it's
so it
just-
could be a really long.
If I can clarify, so it's Jessica Ridgway, who's that county's planning department. She's
Oh.
managing it.
Oh,
She's
great.
part of it.
Oh.
They had gotten funds from CHISC, which is the Creating Healthy Schools and Communities grant, which the city also has received funds for. So it's sort of another break chapter of that funding stream.
Oh, okay.
They're working on, I think this is a planning project.
Oh, okay.
But that's why I say maybe not wait for them, because it's a planning project.
Right.
It could take years and years.
Right.
Okay.
So
Yeah, not waiting for them would be better. You're right.
So I think where we were is that there would have to be what's it called, where the whole city votes?
I've done a
Referendum, thank you, a referendum. So it's really.
And it's always dicey about when you do a referendum.
You're too late for a referendum for this year.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably not a good year to do it, right? I mean, there's a lot of. Probably not a good year to do it.
next year's
Next
not
year
a
would be a
great
good.
year either.
Why is
But we
next
have to
year?
find 1 year, there's never
The mayor's
a
like
year,
next year?
we have to find a somewhat palatable.
But next year, there will be community preservation plan as a referendum, so people will already be going, there will already be a referendum, why not two?
Do people hate that referendum or do
We're
they,
done. What?
do people hate that referendum or do they like it?
I don't know how Kingston feels about it yet.
Okay. I mean, that would be part of the,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, so that's the question, I know it's the mayor's election year as well.
Yep.
So I think.
So really what we need to do is talk to the mayor, say, what do you want to do?
We need to talk.
I think that's where we left it the last time, we need to talk.
Yes, ma'am.
So just one way from the Conservation Advisory Council point of view, talking about sidewalk improvements, we're very concerned about trees prioritised in any kind of sidewalk renovation. And also, part of that is an attempt to bury cables, because cables end up destroying trees and being prioritised over trees. And having seen the Henry Street project, which looks amazing, but they dug so deep and they were doing all the sewer and everything and left all these disgusting wires hanging up. It's just, it's really tragic.
Cables are a tough thing.
DJ is saying she can't hear this, we'll try to speak up.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
it's my bit funny for an accent.
I'm just conveying, it's just, technology is really tough.
Cables are a tough thing.
Well, nobody seems to want to take possession of it.
Well, it's money.
Right, but it's also who owns the stuff.
Right.
And a lot of it is actually redundant. If you look at all the spaghetti that's strung on any typical street here, a considerable number of those wires are not being used for anything. And the cable company and whoever else is responsible has absolutely zero incentive to take them down.
Right.
And then Central Hudson comes along and butchers a whole row of trees because they can't be bothered to make the long-term investment. It's
Right.
definitely something that needs to be a municipal force that impels them to do so, because they're always going to go with short-term over long-term investment. And but from our point of view, in terms of the preservation of trees and the environment, the two very much go hand in hand. So just wanted to put a strong.
Yeah, no, it's an element that,
I just wanted to
certainly be
do.
part of the conversation.
I was working on the Henry Street project, I was at the city of Kingston before at Repco, and working with the design team, and we worked hard to, Henry Street has lines on both sides of the street. And we worked hard to get Central Hudson to move all the lines to one side of the street,
Yeah.
so that they're able to have nice trees on one side and then shorter trees on the other side. And they were I was surprised. Central had said,
Other from them?
yeah, they said they would do it. But,
Have they done it?
well, the project hasn't been built
Oh,
yet.
okay.
I don't know, I left, so that's John Showplace where it is
Right.
now.
Frank, you're talking about Frank.
Oh, sorry, Frank.
No, this is Henry Street,
Right,
which is still in design. I think they were,
Thank you.
I think they were planning on doing
Yeah, no,
it.
if they've agreed to do it, they'll do it, yeah.
Well,
And-
also particularly with all the storms that have been going on this year, I mean, it must have cost them a fortune to restore electricity. I mean, you know, it surely at some point it becomes a question of diminishing returns. So maybe they are more willing to do this than we assume.
Well, they were willing to do that specific
Right.
thing of putting all the lines on one side of the street as opposed to having them cross the street.
They like them in the air.
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons.
Michael and EJ would like to speak. Michael, you
Okay,
wanna go first?
EJ,
Well,
or Michael.
Michael had put a comment in the chat first.
Okay,
You're-
then Michael gets to go.
you decide.
Michael gets to go.
Sure. So the trees, and the cables are sort of related because, impact walking, because the streets that have more cables have less trees and have greater heat island impact, and therefore create more discomfort for walking. So I was just making a suggestion that perhaps in future repaving, there could be an attempt to look at cooler materials for the repaving or paint that lowers the temperature along the street. An example of such a street is Delaware Avenue, near the avenues, which gets quite hot, has a lot of overhead wires and minimal trees.
Okay. Good.
I don't know very much about the thought of burying cables. Because that's really.
I have some experience with it. It's, the utility companies will do it if you pay them to do it. They're not gonna spend their money to do it because it's not necessary to do. It reduces the efficiency of their system because a buried cable has to be cooled, so they lose power, so it's not as nice as the one in the air that they can see. They like them in the air because when a tree hits them and they fall down, they can see where it is. If it's underground, it fails, that's hard. So you can get them to do it. But they really hate it and you have to pay. It's been my experience. So things may have changed, but that's.
EJ seconded that, I'm sorry, EJ seconded it.
Oh, EJ, yes. EJ,
Hi, yes, you can actually use Elizabeth. I just do EJ because Elizabeth is so long, it takes up so much room. In terms of Franklin Street, they are putting in higher poles, much taller poles, I should say. And there are going to be on the south side, that's my side, all the way along until the library, because the library has the generator, I think. So they'll cross over there just for that block and then back over to the other side for the rest into Broadway. And we will be getting shorter trees on our south side and the other side will get bigger trees. So that is in the works on, and they're actually in my block. They were supposed to do my pole today and I would not have had any electricity. So it's probably going to be tomorrow. They basically knock on your door. So anyway, so this should be done in a week or two, the entire street.
good.
I just want to say one other thing. Other countries manage this
Okay.
really easily, so I don't understand why we can't.
Undergrounding is expensive.
But it's a long-term saving.
Well, it is and it isn't. I mean, I've had experience with it, especially in California. There are places where undergrounding works very well. Once you put in the piping and the conduit, everybody may want to put their pipe, want to run their wires through there. But it isn't always workable solution. In most cities these days, I do think that they are doing more undergrounding, but you know, you have to have the agreement of all the utilities. Otherwise, it is not going to work. So,
Sure.
and not all ground is suitable for undergrounding. So,
California is an earthquake center.
well, yeah, and you would think that with the ground moving and shaking on a regular basis, underground wouldn't work. But I have many communities, mainly for the view, mainly for property values, who were very, very upset if we were going in, doing pavement, doing work, and we could not underground. So we did it when we could. It was very expensive, but it was not a solution for every community.
So it's something to think about. I mean, yeah, it's certainly something to talk about and think about. And as we go forward with this district thing, it's certainly a topic to raise. So those are the two issues. The rest, so if you guys want to, we won't be offended. If you guys want to get started, administrative stuff.
Okay, well, thank you for your input. And I will get working on this at some soon.
We think it's a great idea.
Soon and get some drafts over to you.
Yep.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
I just want to say, Michael said, would be curious to see a cost benefit analysis of the overhead issues, including pros and cons. If it allows for planting more trees, the cost could be increases.
Well, wait, what is Tom Schultes around? Is he,
I don't know. I assume he's the floor down?
he's supposed to be on this committee then, isn't he?
He's only in he's not a member, he's a consultant.
Okay, all right, I'll keep trying to get it. I can't get hold of it. All right, thank you. Cheers.
I did invite him to the meeting for project updates.
But he's too busy, apparently. Okay.
There's a lot going on right now.
Yeah, there is. Okay, where are we? Okay, we can get into, well, project updates is the next group of things. And we could pick on you for your stuff, Emily, or we can go to our administrative stuff and talk about when we're gonna meet. And new chair, and well, let's go to C and see project. What do we hear about Broadway? Does anybody hear anything about Broadway?
I have a few comments that are, it's not a project update.
On project or Broadway?
Just on the existing projects.
Yeah.
Like infrastructure comments. And I was kind of hoping John would be here, but maybe you could share them.
So we don't take notes for the council issues anymore. We record the meeting. I could try to. I would prefer it if you could email me your thoughts and I pass them on.
Okay.
Your voice will be heard better. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll just share them with everybody here too. So the one comment that I have on Broadway is that, well, it's really on the roundabout. At the intersection, at the end of where Broadway and the roundabout come together, there's a crosswalk there. And there's supposed to be a flashing light for people to push, like there is at Franklin and the other. But I think it got hit by a car like in the first month or something, and it's never been replaced.
So I think I can update everyone actually, that I think this will solve that.
Okay.
It's my understanding that Broadway is still not under the city's control. That's why, for example, the rain gardens, like the plantings there are not being cared for. It's still under the control of the construction company. Once it is officially turned over to the city will be in charge. Within that, they have to replace everything that has been hit on Broadway thus far.
Okay, so for it's in the roundabout. I know exactly where that line is, so it's in the New York State DOT project, which I think has been passed to the city. The city is under control, so this particular issue, I mean, I can go John, I think it's a real safety issue.
I don't have any other information on that,
yeah.
It's a good thing to mention, to bring up to him. You ought to copy Ed Norman too, or we ought to copy Ed Norman too, if you'd like. Because if it's a maintenance issue, it's gonna be his to deal with.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And you're right, if the city if it's been accepted by the city and the city's responsible, that needs to be replaced.
Yeah, and I don't know what the issue is, like why it hasn't.
Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, it could
It's
be,
an electrical, it seems like it would be a simple electrical.
they had a huge problem getting this traffic signals because of the chip shortage.
Yeah,
And if it's one of those deals with fancy things, that may be chips, I don't know, maybe chips.
yeah.
If so,
The other thing on Broadway, to be on Broadway and Grand, this is actually not my issue, it was mentioned to me by a colleague right before, it was actually why I was late, because he's like, oh, I have something that I want you to tell them. So he was just saying that when, at the Broadway and Grand intersection, when people are coming from Grand and Hasbrook and turning right, and then there's people who are coming from the YMCA that turn left onto Broadway. And there was always that sort of like standoff. He said that standoff is still happening because people haven't become accustomed to the new intersection. I thought there was going to be signalization that would prevent that. But he said he saw a standoff just before I came to this meeting. And everybody just turns left out of the YMCA onto Broadway and doesn't pay attention to the oncoming traffic. So I don't know if it's habitual, like people have been doing it for decades and they just forgot that they should yield to oncoming traffic, or if there's a signalization.
So it's worth pointing out to John, but you know what he's gonna tell you? Or what I would tell you if I was him, it's new, give me 6 months.
Maybe, but maybe there's a sign that, you know.
Right, maybe some sort of a lag green or some sort of a leading.
Yeah,
Might be the answer, which you can just program it to the signal and solve the problem,
yeah.
but.
So my response is going back to process a little bit. I wonder if the complete streets, if Kristen, if you actually want to email myself and Bob, or Bob, if we should, since you're still chair, collect any comments that come from complete
Yes.
streets, then it's an official communication to John. But I want to also say sort of to the public, and if anyone's listening, there is the 311 app, and anyone can put in an issue, and that is a good way for it to also be recorded into the system. But I think complete streets might have a little bit of a different voice, and
Right.
so we could summarize it and send it to John.
So, yeah, so we can do that.
I'll write it up and send it to you.
Okay,
I
and
mean, I guess-
we'll do that as an official, here's some comments we got.
Yeah,
Okay, that's fine, that's good.
If you're going up Broadway and turning left on a Cedar, is there do you have an arrow or is it just a left on green? That's my question. I think it's just a green and you take a left without an arrow.
It's left,
I don't know.
I don't think there's.
It's kind of tricky to see people, frankly, because there's a lot of traffic and people just kind of go to the left and, you know, the people crossing.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's why I wanted to do that intersection for the counting pedestrians and.
You really
watch
want
it, observe it.
Yeah, and I was gonna do that, and then she found something to take that place. I was just thinking of that intersection, you know, there's a lot going on there, it's kind of a busy one.
Yeah, I don't know, but let's see, we'll make a comment.
My Broadway commons have experienced people using the center turning lane as passing lane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you just, right down the street.
I saw someone use the bike lane as a passing lane.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yes,
But yeah,
that's normal, they've got zero respect for the pavement.
But I ride Broadway, much of the time, they keep it clear. Occasionally, I see somebody either stopped in the bike lane. And once I've seen somebody park there, but a couple times I've seen people stop there, still in their car. And, you know, which is wrong.
I let people know in a nice way, if I'm on my bicycle, hey, you're in the bike lane, you know, I'm just like,
You don't bang the side of the car.
no. I lost my saying in that way. It does happen inside, but I control it.
near the intersection to why they filled in a hole recently. So that was the state had done, or I guess the contractor had done that then, if it wasn't the
If
city.
it hasn't been accepted by the city, then the contractor has to.
Okay, that's just interesting to know that that's who is still taking care of that area.
That was sort of, I had forgotten, or I didn't, that was reminded of that, and that made a lot of sense to me. Oh, it's not in the city's control yet.
Right.
Yeah.
It should be turned over, I'm surprised it
Does seem like it's been a long time.
could be paperwork.
I think it's the last light, right, at Cedar and Broadway. I
And
noticed they
there's
were
work
working on that.
happening
Yeah.
yesterday and today, so it might be.
Yeah,
Well, maybe they'll put my turning arrow in it. Maybe.
Some of the, you know, some of the delay, yeah, some of the delay on that job was all this chip stuff. If I remember right.
it was pandemic
Couldn't
related
get the
supply
electronics.
chain issues. Yeah.
So then, once it is turned over to the city, there will be, I guess, just is it like the Parks Department will be cleaning out the?
Yeah, and I'm happy to report that in the DPW's budget, there is at least 2 full-time members that are building and maintenance positions, and they will be maintaining Broadway.
Great. Oh, good. I noticed how it was sort of getting overgrown. I think it sort of been cleaned out somewhat recently, but for a while it was looking a bit wild in there.
they gonna do the Newtown Linear Park and Keystone Point Trail also?
I believe that that is actually Parks and Rec maintenance crew, of which we do have, I believe it's also 2 full-time, don't put me in full-times, it's something like that. There are full-time staff that are working it, that are responsible for cleaning the trails.
Was
That
there
was
a grant
new
act
this year.
for,
Was that
was there a grant act for equipment for parking on Linear Park and the Keystone Point Trail?
a grant for equipment for the,
Yeah, like, I don't know.
Yeah, they didn't win that one.
Oh, they didn't?
I wrote that one. They couldn't win that one.
It's for like a little,
Yeah, it was
Okay.
RTP, Recreational Trails Program, equipment grant, and we applied for, like little machines that go around on the trails and little snowplows and, yeah. So, but they might,
next time.
yeah, well.
I know.
But, Emma? They may have put some of that in the budget anyway,
yeah,
to buy some of those things.
yeah, there might be, but I can't speak to it.
Okay, good. So that,
Other comments?
Sure.
Related to this stuff? I've noticed quite a few spots where if you are in bike lane, you will get smacked in the face with tree limbs. Because
you
we're
were
not
talking about
being
that the other day, and that's a maintenance issue.
Yeah.
For parks department. Right,
Yeah, I've noticed that too.
Yeah.
me too.
I don't think we thought about that when we picked out the trees.
Softer branches.
Well,
You know, this is-
branches that weren't so low. And you need a
It's the
higher clearance.
birches, I've noticed specifically the birches, I'm like, oh, yeah, the birches have branches. It's just-
They'll grow.
Yeah.
But not before you bring them up.
That could be a good example.
But those branches aren't going to be any higher on the tree when the tree grows.
No, you gotta take those off.
They need a pruning program to
So
deal
they-
with it now.
yeah.
while they're
So
still
the
small.
311 app really would be a good use for that, because you can geocode it and you can add a photo. And then ideally, DPW would look at all of those and go through and do them all at once.
But when they get the project, not yet.
Right.
Can't do it now. It's not theirs.
So here's a question related to the sidewalk district. I put in a 311 request for some sidewalk maintenance near where I live. Basically, there's some parking lots owned by a nonprofit who weren't taking care of it, and it was basically the sidewalks are impassable at this point. And apparently the city spoke with them and they cleared them up. But will that be part of the district, like maintenance through the city
No, well,
of existing sidewalks?
one model, correct me when I go wrong on this, Kristen, who is the expert in this, is that the city is funded for a sidewalk crew. And that
Okay.
crew will do maintenance and do replacements and have a program, do
That's
something,
terrific.
miles or whatever.
Because there's existing sidewalks that just aren't maintained, and I just honestly
And
don't
that's
know,
the
and people probably don't know, because the city is supposed to do it, or
The
the,
city's not supposed to operate right now, it's fine.
Right. and they don't.
They probably don't even know.
Right.
They don't, and the city has not really enforced, they've
enforced it.
enforced it, but they have not really enforced it
Like
over
this-
the last 50 years, so now everybody's so far behind
Yeah.
that it's hard to enforce at this point. So we were proposing the sidewalk district, which would change that model to the city would be responsible
Right.
for not maintaining the sidewalks, not like sweeping and
Right.
doing snow removal, but replacing and
Right,
rehabilitating
capital
sidewalks.
work.
And just, I mean, in terms of just where we are right now, late summer, you can get these sidewalks, and literally the weeds are like trees on some of them. So they wouldn't come and like clear them for that, but still the fact that the trees weeds are able to grow because they're all cracked, so the city would theoretically be maintaining them in, like flat, single pieces of cement or whatever, so that the weeds wouldn't be growing. So
It
when
still
you get that-
wouldn't happen immediately,
Right.
it would be over, I think we calculated that we would do like 3 miles a year.
Right,
of
we'll get there, right.
So over
And how
30
many
years,
is
you'd
that?
be in the city.
Over 30 years?
Yeah, it was like
How many
something.
miles, I'm trying to think, was it 70 miles? How many miles?
We had like 80 something.
Well, they gotta get started then.
The sidewalk, yeah. But I didn't know if you were a property owner and you choose to do it yourself, you get tax credit for
Okay.
it, so you don't have to get paid twice.
But they have to do it up to the standard.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
They can just do their.
Now, where there is a city-owned tree that has damaged the sidewalk, that is adjacent to a homeowner, the city would take care of that, and only the homeowner would be responsible for the area that was
That's a
not
good question.
there.
So if there's a tree in the city right away,
Right.
curb line,
I think right now it's it's the responsibility of the homeowner to make.
So I have a tree I don't want, and I'm just saying this because I've lived it. I have a tree I don't want, you, the city, planted it. You, the city, are not telling me I gotta maintain it.
They're not gonna do it.
Well, I'm gonna maintain it, I'm cutting it down, okay? Which, as we know, causes a whole lot
some
of
people
issues.
get mad, right?
But I'm just saying, those are the things that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I think you have to request permission from the tree commission to cut down the
Theoretically.
tree.
Theoretically, yeah.
Right.
well,
Any tree in the city, right?
I think just any tree in the right of way,
Yeah.
not on private property.
Okay,
I think the guy cutting a tree behind me like today, you gotta get his permission.
right. Right, taking down trees, I don't know that they get, I don't think they get.
Representative Hudson.
Are you saying that I could cut down a 200 foot tree that maybe is 100 years old without getting the city's permission?
On your private.
On your private property?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, when I lived in Irvington, New York, you couldn't cut down a tree anywhere without getting the tree commission's permission and an arborist writing off on it.
Yeah, some of those Westchester towns have some pretty strict regulations.
Yeah, Irvington was very strict about everything.
But if that's not the ordinance in Kingston.
No,
No, it's,
Would there be anything that would prevent volunteers from pruning trees along the bike lanes? Any union issue?
if you just went and did it now,
If we didn't know about it.
There would be a union issue.
Well, then, I mean, but then the,
well, so you got a contractor?
Hmm?
Is that guy a union contractor that did Broadway? Or is he open shop?
It's, Lucy Brothers.
Right.
I don't know.
there used to be nerves what the president says, because maybe you have the best intentions, but then somebody who just doesn't like the bike lanes at all, or
Oh,
doesn't
yeah.
like what the city's doing, comes along and chops them all down.
Because I'm thinking about Hurley Avenue, if you're not paying attention, you're gonna get whacked. And they put the flashing pedestrian light on Quarry Street, and the trees are now obscuring it, so you can't see the flashing light anyway.
But that sounds like a 311 request.
No, I did put a three
Oh, you did?
light in, and nothing happened.
Elizabeth wanted to point out the time.
Elizabeth, yes.
No,
So,
Yeah.
she wants to be a nudge, but we are going to cover the rest of the agenda before 4:30.
before 4:30, I propose that. Well, some of it. Most of it. Now let's move on. The updates, because I don't want to dump this on Melanie, let's do the other business and we'll do as many of the updates as we can. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay, for our meeting times and dates for next year, we've been meeting quarterly, 22, and 23.
Do you not want to have a discussion about chair first?
We can talk about chair first, okay. I'm not gonna be I'm resigning the chair. I'll stay on the committee council. But I've been chair for too long.
How long?
I don't know. I've figured that out.
A couple of years now, for sure.
At least a couple. Well,
And was Tom?
since Tom Polk, right?
Yeah, it was for,
So Tom was chair for a million years.
yeah.
I'm not gonna do that. That's what I was, so it's been probably,
Self-imposed term limits.
right, probably 3 years anyway, 3 or 4. So it's time for a new chair, time for new blood. So I guess the question would be, is there any anybody who wants to be chair, would be the first piece of this. And then should we vote on a new chair, and when does it start? So I'll open the floor to nominations I can make a nomination, or we could talk about volunteers.
Those at home, did you hear what Bob was saying? So we're looking for a new chair.
Yeah, I heard. And I'm
Yeah.
staying silent.
I heard that. I picked that up, Brian.
I nominate Brian.
Please. I would,
Respectfully decline. Thank you.
I would nominate John.
I was going to nominate John too, and I want to first say thank you for Bob for all of your work. I know I just joined recently and sat in on a bunch of meetings last year as the Franklin Street project. And you just have done a great job, and I've really enjoyed being on this committee. That's one of the reasons I wanted to join it. So I appreciate all your work. And I agree, I think John would be great.
Very kind of you. So I'll entertain nominations for chair. I'll nominate John. Do I have a second?
I'll second it. John, are you willing to accept?
Yeah, Bob already hit me with this.
Oh. So you're not blind,
So let's take a vote. So all those, we have a nomination and we have a second. Do we have any discussion?
I think John would be wonderful.
I think I have to abstain because I'm not allowed to vote remotely, but I am fully in favor of John.
Okay.
Same here. I think I can't vote remotely either, but as I was a second for the nomination, you obviously know how I feel.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstainers? Congratulations.
Yay!
Well, and we can talk about that. I won't, we'll ease into this so that we don't.
I'm a bit overwhelmed at the moment.
Yeah, no, I would expect probably after the new year kind of thing, we'll ease into this.
Bob, will you still be a member?
I'll continue to be a member and stay active in it and happy to do that because it's fun.
Right.
But that is the chair. Because others should be chair. We should share the wealth. Good, so that's good. Now, meeting dates for next year. We did it quarterly last year. Is that enough? Do you want to do it more frequently, less frequently?
I'm thinking about this. If this zoning program goes through with the complete streets agenda items, I think this committee needs to be a lot more involved.
Yes.
Literally would not suffice for that. You might get to the point where it would have to almost be monthly. I don't know how to really, I don't know what the decision variables are here, because when's the zoning gonna be approved? Is it gonna stand the way it is with that kind of mandatory complete streets approach? And if so, how do we, yes, and if so, where do we get our authority for that? And it's oversight. Do we need another resolution to go through that anything coming through planning is also got to run by us? The sort of way the tree commission seems to have a say on.
I don't think you currently have that authority.
Well, that's what I'm
The
asking.
tree commission doesn't?
No.
We don't. No, we do not.
You're recommendation.
Right, we're a council, we make recommendations.
But if we're the, the complete streets authorities, then, with the zoning changes, I think we need a different role, a redefined role, to have any real weight.
I'd like to speak to that, John, if I can. I'm sorry, Kristen, do you want to go ahead?
I was just saying, do you mean changing our legislation that created our body?
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Do we need to do that, number one? And number two, do we want to do it? I mean, that's another whole other issue. Right now we're advisory. If this zoning passes the way it's proposed, it implies to me that we need authority and a bigger role to help that zoning change work.
Well, right now, the construct right now, well, let's back up for a minute.
EJ has one.
Okay, EJ, what? Elizabeth, right?
Elizabeth, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, so I actually was very surprised that it met only 4 times. I remember emailing Bob and saying, aren't we meeting today? He was like, no, we only meet. I think maybe every month would be great. I'd be for that, but I have to talk about the time. Is there any way we could push it to later in the day? And I would love to do monthly, but if we could say start at 5 or 5:30. The other issue is that the public, if this is an open meeting, they are at work too during the day. So if we want to include more people, it might behoove us to have a later time when people are out from work and can join by video or come to the meeting. And so if we are talking about these big changes in the city with the form code, if it's passed, which we hope it will be, that would then encourage more involvement from people. And 3 to 4:30 during the middle of a week and the afternoon, I would say 99% of people who are interested would probably be working. So if we could think about that in terms of times and then also monthly, I think that would give us a lot more accessibility to everybody else in the city who is interested. I don't know if many people even know of this committee. It's not, mainly because the schedule is, so you look at the monthly calendar, you don't really see it, and then you see it. And that's where I was surprised when I first was getting involved. But anyway, those are my thoughts about the frequency and the timing, and also the accessibility of the general public to be able to come to the meetings and also view them.
So let me break this into 2 pieces. Do we want to go for, at least preliminarily, for a monthly meeting? And if there's not enough to talk about, we don't have to, we can put it on the calendar for a monthly meeting. Do you want to do that? Is that? Yes.
I
Brian?
like that, yeah.
Elizabeth, Brian, John, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do a monthly meeting.
We didn't hear from Brian.
I know Brian's being quiet.
I'm not opposed to a monthly meeting as long as we have agenda items
Right.
Yeah,
and
agree.
business to discuss.
Right. If we
I
don't
agree
have
with that,
anything,
yeah.
then we don't.
Just to me.
Yeah, no, so good. Okay, so we'll go to monthly schedule, and if there's agenda, we'll meet. Time-wise, Elizabeth has suggested that we change our time to a more traditional time. That's a pain for you, Emily.
Sure.
It's a pain for me also. I have a tremendous number of evening meeting conflicts already. And to add another evening meeting, that'd just be another conflict on top of conflict.
Well, could we move the time back a little, say 4 o'clock instead of 3 o'clock?
Here's information, the Finance and Audit Committee happens after this meeting at 6:30. So I think as long as we're out of this room by like 6:15,
Oh,
this
okay.
room is available.
So does 4 o'clock work?
That should still work for me. I think my earliest meetings start at 5.
It doesn't have to be on Wednesdays. We could pick another day, right?
So if we're going to monthly meetings at 4 o'clock, does that work for everybody?
Sure.
That's better for me.
I like later even, but apparently that's not gonna work.
Yeah, later to me would be better too, but if we can't.
How about you? How do you feel about meeting time?
Claudette?
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't.
I'm sorry. I was sorry.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
It's a hazy day. Well, I might have to do a hybrid, depending on my ride, because I do rely on the wonderful Robert over there.
Okay.
I could do it on Zoom. 4 o'clock, I guess would be okay. My only concern about monthly meetings is that we really have to have a lot of reason to meet. Because right now the agendas have seemed somewhat okay, the way they are, but I agree if we're changing how we interact legislatively with the city, we might need to.
And Rob, at least maybe as long as the zoning, because the zoning process is not going to be quick.
No.
They've got, this is the second draft, there'll be a third draft. They have to go through an environmental impact statement. They have to have a determination of significant impact or not, or not. Then they have
The
to
other advantage of a monthly meeting would be they could be shorter. So we could do in an hour monthly what we're doing in an hour and a half or 2 hours, 4 times a year. So if you're meeting more frequently.
I think that would only be true if we don't take on a bigger role.
Right.
Okay.
If we have an expanded role, an hour and a half might not be enough.
You should probably talk to John and see how he sees this too. I mean, John is a capable engineer, he understands complete streets stuff. You know, it's not like,
And our extension of role is to do what exactly?
Well, the way the tree commission often has input on projects. The Complete Streets Advisory Council should probably have input on projects now that they're looking to incorporate complete streets elements into the zoning. So if somebody's got a proposal for, a new building or a major renovation or whatever, or even
there might be a model where we ask John, if we are happy to provide you with our input and cover, if you will, for projects that have complete streets elements. He's capable of determining that stuff on his own. John is competent. But it might be useful for him to have the council, to be able to use the council to say, no, the council doesn't want you to do that. And the model that comes to mind is what Andy Turco talked about, or Levin talked about, when she was on the planning board and the drugstores came for their site plan approval, and they would not move their parking to the rear, and they fought putting in sidewalks. And their threat was, we'll go away, we won't do this project, they were intimidated into
Saying
yes when they shouldn't.
well, that,
So we could, doing that.
keep bringing up the case where these, on Quarry Street, was new construction and significant renovations on 3 dental facilities. And they all got waived on putting sidewalks.
Right.
And there's a school right there. The kids are walking in
Yeah,
traffic.
that's a bad decision.
That was
So,
bad. And if we had oversight, we'd say, no, you can't do that.
if we, the planning board should say no, but if, we have to,
Approved it.
and then we have to elevate our influence on the planning board, saying,
Michael is adding, I think the most important issue for complete streets with the zoning reform is related to curb cuts and minimizing them.
minimizing curb cuts how, for ADA compliance or just?
Michael, do you want to speak to your thought?
Minimizing them for any parking spaces, not necessarily ADA crossings at intersections.
Oh, okay, just was curious.
so with increased parking, is that the,
What driveways you're talking about?
Sorry, can you say that again? I didn't quite hear you.
Are you talking about curb cuts for driveways?
Yes, that's right, driveways.
So minimize those.
Yes.
And that was one of the things with the Broadway project. If you did a deep dive into those types of bidirectional, semi-protected bike lanes, the deep dive on that would have suggested that it probably wasn't a good idea on Broadway because there's so many driveways in addition to the cross streets. These are the kinds of issues that.
and there's a whole traffic debate about curb cuts and what their impact is and what their, but, let me back up for a second. So let's pick a day for each month, at least to set aside. Is there any day that everybody loves, or does nobody care? Do we circulate days? What do you think?
I cannot do the third Wednesday, that's my Live Kingston Commission.
Okay,
So if I'm the liaison, I cannot.
Second Wednesdays looks to be consistently open.
I cannot do any Tuesday.
okay. So should we say second Wednesday? Second Wednesday?
That's fine.
Second Wednesday.
Second
Okay.
Wednesday? Second Wednesday? Second Wednesday, 4:00.
Yeah,
All right.
and then the follow-up question,
That's fine.
when do we start that?
Well, I already know, if it's the second Wednesday of
Can't be
October, I can't be here.
And what's November second?
I'm sorry, what's the second Thursday look like for people?
Second
Sorry,
Thursday,
I have a standing meeting at 4:30.
second Wednesday?
On all.
So second Thursday, what does second Thursday look like?
I'm okay with
I don't know.
The second Thursday in October is Sukkot, if anybody celebrates that.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect us to start in October anyway, because I think October is going to be too soon.
Okay.
For those of us that have things.
The
So-
second Thursday in November is the day before Veterans Day.
Yeah, that's probably not
Well,
good.
could I make a recommendation to this start at the first of the year,
Good,
January?
good. Nothing's gonna happen zoning wise until after that anyway. So starting in January,
Monthly meetings as soon as we can.
Well,
Yeah, that second Thursday could probably work for me.
okay.
starting in January or starting soon?
I would say starting October if we can.
Except April, that's my grandson's birthday.
Well, there will always be.
There's always
Yeah.
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 So, all right, we're gonna go second Thursday, 4 o'clock. We're gonna begin when? December, it's, what day is it?
October 13th.
October is no good. I can't do it.
October, well,
Okay, November 10th. November 10th.
is that Veterans Day?
That's the day before Veterans Day?
Veteran Day is the Friday. I don't know if, is that a city holiday?
Yes.
National holiday, yeah.
Yeah, that's why I suggested.
My company doesn't do this.
I think we start this in January.
Yeah, that sounds
I
good.
think we're, yeah.
January, second Thursdays, 4 o'clock.
Do we have a meeting in December already planned?
Yeah, it's the 14th.
Yeah, so let's keep that one and then start at 4 o'clock.
Sounds good.
Can you all vote about this time, starting in January, so it's recorded that you voted
Yes.
on it?
So I'll entertain a motion to move to after the first of the year, going to meet on the second Thursday of the month at 4 o'clock. Can I have a motion to that effect?
I'll
Okay,
second.
I've got a motion from Kristen, I've got a second from Claudette. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Brian's in favor, I'm sure.
I'm abstaining again and I am in
Oh,
favor.
because right, I forgot. Any abstainers? Okay, so it's good, it passes. And that's what we,
Can I make a motion that if we think that we need a meeting in November to deal with the zoning code changes, that we maybe have one?
yes. Do you want a tentative date to, no, you want to lock in that day, you like that day before?
Well, the 10th. I mean, if we don't need it, we can cancel it, but maybe we could just schedule it. Because otherwise, we're going to not meet till December, and there's going to be a lot of things happening with that code between now and December.
Yeah, I'm not gonna,
I would be in favor of that. I think that's okay. There was also the thing that Julie and the
oh, the e-bike thing?
e-bike thing that maybe might want to chat about. Could be a minimal agenda. We don't have to cover everything, but if there's something, if there's precedent, it's okay.
I'll have to be remote if that happens, but that's
We decide on November 10th?
November 10th.
That's already a scheduled meeting.
No, November 10th is not.
Well,
Oh, no, I'm
December-
sorry,
December
November 10th.
14th.
We had 14th already scheduled, let's stick to that then.
But that's December 14th, not November.
So just scheduling a November 10th meeting if there's any,
If
If there's a need.
If there's a reason. it's
yeah, if
needed.
there's any very pressing items like.
Okay, so-
considering the e-bike or the.
So Elizabeth made a motion that we tentatively schedule for November 10th at 4 o'clock. And do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, Kristen seconded it. Any discussion? No discussion, all in favor? Any opposed? Any abstainers? Okay, good. So we'll tentatively schedule that. Does that work for you?
Can I also have clarity that you're still chair during this time, so we'll do the same process for agenda making?
Yes.
Great.
Because we'll transition gently to John, don't worry, we don't want to just jump into this, we'll get whiplash.
So the December 14th, we're canceled.
No,
December 14th.
Yeah.
We're also holding that just as a placeholder.
that could be a full one.
Yeah, just trying to make sure my calendar was right, so.
Oh, yeah, I do know. Okay.
So
December 14th.
December
Yeah, that's regularly
14th,
scheduled.
3 o'clock, that's a Wednesday, it was regularly scheduled, so.
Will that be at 4 in December,
Will that be?
at 4 PM in December?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
4
okay.
p.m. instead of 3, okay.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I'll send out calendar invites to everyone.
Okay, good, all right, good. Anything else in that stuff that we need to talk about?
I have an admin thing. My apologies, Kristen, I left your name off of the meeting minutes. And I think this is your first official meeting as a council member. So EJ pointed out that I forgot, I left you off, my apologies. So I just want to make that clear for the minutes.
We'll write you in.
For which minutes?
So instead of minutes, the recording is our documentation,
Oh,
but
okay.
EJ pointed out that we didn't, Bob briefly said that you were a member, but to the public, you were a staff person the last time you were seen at a Complete Streets Advisory meeting.
Oh,
And now you work at RUPCO and now you've been officially signed in and you're a member of the council.
right,
So just some clarity around that.
okay.
Okay, so let's go through some of this update stuff quickly, and then we'll be done.
Oh, I
So
like,
we won't have it.
I like having my stuff at the end because you just want to get through it.
Right. Head bike master plan.
We have, a draft is circulating with city staff.
Okay,
It's pretty robust. It's taking us a while to get through it.
all right.
So this project has become pretty long in its timeline. So I don't think that we're gonna be able to rush through it like we were kind of hoping that this fall we were gonna have a public meeting and the Complete Streets training. That's all still coming, but there's a lot for the staff to review before I'm able to send it back out to the Public Advisory Committee. But
All right,
good stuff to come.
you're making progress, and that's good.
Yeah.
And you're happy with your consultant still?
We're gonna have a robust plan.
Okay. Bike counts, head bike counts will be ongoing today, tomorrow, the next day?
Yeah, I do just want to mention that work that's happening. So right now, we have 4 people who are counting along Broadway at this moment. They are counting cyclists and pedestrians. 3 of them are along Broadway where the new infrastructure has been implemented. It'll be really interesting to see how that data differs from the 4 previous years of data that we had as a baseline. I've been waiting for this year for 4 years.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested to see what data we get. I don't know what else to say about that, except in future years, I hope that the Complete Streets Advisory Council will help me get the word out to volunteers.
Yeah, good, okay. So you should all walk home.
I was gonna say, I'm just gonna go ride my bike down
Yeah,
Broadway.
We'll do it right.
Oh, the one person with the bike, with their helmet on, going the right way.
Road Hero, I see some signs.
Yes, has anyone seen the bus ads yet?
No?
I hear, Brian, we got an email from Timely Signs that they are on the buses, so I haven't seen them yet. Brian, have you seen them?
Yeah, I've seen them. They're huge.
That's good.
But the thing is, I don't know which buses they put them on, and I know we've had some trouble. I shouldn't even use that word, but the battery electric buses are not being deployed as frequently as I thought they would be. So it's anyone's guess on what, where the actual bus, what route it's going to be taking. But the focus that Emily and I tried to make was that the messages be on buses that traverse Kingston regularly. So it might vary a little bit.
And for clarity, that's part of the Be a Road Hero traffic transportation education campaign. Other interesting things to mention are, I was gonna say, we have designed, this isn't final, so I'm not gonna kind of put it up for the public or share my screen, but we have created a citation, an educational material that the police department will put on vehicles along Broadway. With the checkoff boxes for obstructing the driver's lane, handicap, no permit displayed, parking in a cycle track, parking in the buffer zone, double parked, no parking, failing to stop for a pedestrian in a crosswalk, and aggressive driving. And then we've got an illustration that I'm very proud of that shows of vehicles not park, big X over, don't park in the buffer or bike lane.
Good,
So-
that's excellent.
The
Very
police
good.
are on board, they're gonna put it on cars, so it's not punitive. It is an educational material, but it looks a little scary, so
Yeah.
hopefully they'll read it. So I think this is.
That's fantastic. Nice
Yeah.
work.
That's really good.
Yeah. So that's coming along.
Good,
We sent mailers to every resident in the city of Kingston. That was in English and Spanish. We had social media. We posted some of the posts and they kind of blew the city's Facebook out of the water. 3 different posts had 800 comments, 400 comments, and 600 comments. It was the most comments any city post has ever gotten.
What were they, what was the sort of flavor of the comments?
So as part of the Via Rotary campaign, so it's educational materials. I invite you all to go back and look at the social media posts, they're still up. There's a lot of thoughts and feelings about walking and biking in the city of Kingston. And I invite you all to go look at it yourself.
good.
Yeah, so there's a lot there.
And this will help us with the sidewalk district, and this is a good thing. People pay attention to this.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm sorry, I just have to mention also there's yard signs. So there's yard signs up around the city, and in fact, we did another batch of yard signs in Spanish and English. Those are gonna be going up anytime now.
Excellent. Great, good, this is good.
Who
Kingston.
knew, who knew?
Who
You know,
knew, yeah.
however many years ago when
And we-
that people felt that passion, we knew people felt passionately, but this passionately about walking and bicycling. I mean, 800 comments on a Facebook post, that's a lot of comments.
It's a lot of comments. I mean, I will say what has brought, I think I've said this publicly, what has brought me into this work when I was leading Bike Friendly Kingston was being shocked that people were against having a bike lane. I've learned a lot since then. I think it's more complicated. I understand that. But I don't have to remind John and Kristen that I'm looking at you right now. The amount of vitriol that came up when we were discussing the possibility of a bike lane or a bike lane.
It's public
This has
hearing.
been an emotional topic for the city of Kingston for a long time.
And guess what? Broadway still works, and people still park, and life goes on.
We don't have a drag strip anymore.
We don't have a drag strip anymore. And that mile, because it's only a mile, doesn't make you late for work. Going 30. Yeah, no, it's good.
No, it's vastly more predictable travel than it has ever been since I've lived here.
Kingston Forward, we heard from Bartek. That was great. Well, and then the question then at hand is, do we want to meet with these guys or not? No big deal. The consultant.
I think it's worth it. I haven't read the most recent draft, but I think it's worth it. I think what I noticed in the first draft was that it just was missing that local flavor, the local knowledge. And I think that there was tendency to try to put a cookie cutter approach on a very not cookie cutter city.
Right.
So
I would encourage, okay, after everybody reads it, then let's talk virtually about whether we want to meet with them, which I expect will be Zoom because they won't be in town, but tomorrow, I think.
They're here for 3 days, I think,
Okay,
but that's too soon for us to do anything, but I think they're here till Saturday or something.
so everybody read
oh,
it.
this would be like tomorrow or Friday.
Yeah, well, I don't want to rush like that. I think we should all read it, and if we want to talk with them, I'm sure Bartek will arrange for us to do so virtually,
Yeah, I'm sure we could have a Zoom call with them.
Okay.
which is fine. Better to do it, better to take time and read it than to rush through it and meet with them. And then, and also if we all read it and have comments, we should send them the comments so that they can have them beforehand, so that our discussion is meaningful, instead of them defending themselves.
Yeah, will you facilitate us putting our comments together
Sure.
like we did last time?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So, read it, make your comments, we'll go from there. See, like e-scooters we did, Franklin Street, Complete Streets is done, right?
No,
Oh,
It's
I-
a process.
Um,
the north side of the street has the bluestone done to Clinton, They're doing the sidewalks from Clinton to Broadway, and then they're gonna come start backwards on the south side from Broadway to Clinton with regular sidewalks, and then Bluestone will start again from Clinton to Wall. They're supposed to be finished by October 1st, but the foreman says that ain't happening, so it's probably gonna be the middle of October.
If the wintered over and they're really, it will cost them money and that was done, they should have finished. Cornell Street parking lot is like 3/4 done, half done,
It's not done.
okay.
But I've heard that Sea Deli, the parking lot that we're helping to come up with a new name
Yeah, that
for,
looks nice,
is completed.
that's paved, looks
And I
nice.
believe the Monkey Joe's lot has not started yet.
Okay.
They also have a deadline they're supposed to meet that feels unrealistic. So we'll see.
Shouldn't take a long time to do the Monkey Joe lot.
Yeah, I don't know.
The other one, yeah, it's still, there's still people that get confused as they go through Cornell Street.
Yeah.
But, good. Flatbush Foxhall,
Yeah, what is happening?
how you doing?
I feel like, so we were on a capital projects internal staff meeting, and I can't, don't quote me on this because it's not I'm not a project manager. I feel like I heard John say that preliminary designs have been selected, but now we are entering a right-of-way phase that will take up to 18 months. There
Okay.
might have been more to it, but I think that that's at least part of the update.
As Kristen knows, right away is a lot of fun.
Has that preliminary design, is that being shared with?
I don't know.
Maybe you could just send that something to, or whoever, to the advisory group. I know people have asked me and I've been like, I thought we were waiting on money or something. We just haven't heard anything.
Yeah. So I think I can email John and ask him for that update.
Yeah, just something to let us know what
Update
happened.
to the advisory group,
Right.
Great.
they should know. DRI Uptown Transportation Projects are all done, right?
No, my understanding is that they've broken up the DRI projects into smaller
Shrink drive.
projects, so Schwank,
Which we care about.
Clinton have light, and.
Oh, the intersection by, yeah, okay, that's a mess, okay.
Let me see, I think that Schwank Ave, they're sort of, I believe that they started the other projects first because Schwank Ave has a few different things, including the train. The county is still in negotiations with the train in that area and the Kingstonian. So I think they sort of paused on that
Oh, right.
project because there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
The other section. I can't-
Clinton.
Clinton,
I thought they were gonna.
do you know the details? I can't remember the details of it, do you know?
No, I would love the details though.
Again, my apologies, I'm not the project manager, we'll have to
Right.
reach out to John.
Okay. no
Maybe we
problem.
can ask John for some updates.
Yeah, that seems reasonable if he wasn't able to come, but he can provide, it's in another form.
Yeah,
Okay,
Kind of related to that, I talked to Dennis Doyle yesterday, and they got the final approval on Kingston Connector, the OW Rail Trail.
Mhm.
And we anticipate going to bid maybe this month, maybe October, with,
for the construction of the design,
for construction,
okay, good.
2023 construction.
All right, good.
wow.
Oh.
I think that was one of the first projects on the Kingston Green Line.
Yeah, speaking of right of way, I strongly recommend if you can avoid eminent domain,
Yeah,
it's advisable.
it's not easy.
It's been a very long and arduous path, and we're fortunate to have had great consultants along the way, staying focused on this. That it has not been easy, even
Yeah.
after we've gotten through eminent domain. I think that just put a big red flag on our project at the DOT, and so we had to redo several environmental reviews and quite a bit of paperwork. It's been very difficult getting us to this point. So we're elated to be moving forward here.
Congratulations.
Second Amendment, it's all Second Amendment, you can't, no taking property. Good. Tour de Kingston happened, it was wonderful, a big success, despite the rain.
I want to put a plug in for Tom Polk's, so that the Tour de Kingston is the biggest fundraiser for Tom Polk's many education programs. I think we'll see in the recommendations for the biped master plan some education suggestions. And what I what I'm looking for is sustainability in those education plans. And so Tory Kingston is the primary funder of those.
Which, yeah, that's, I'm sure makes him anxious every year.
He puts his heart and soul into it, and I don't know if you all know, he broke his arm recently.
Well, didn't fall off his bike, did he? He did, yeah.
But I don't know his story.
Right. It can happen.
And even Betsy helped me remove, I think it was 7 trees that came down on the Walker Valley Rail Trail. I was out there alone cutting, and they happened to ride by and moved a lot of cut stuff out of the way for me.
That's not.
No,
Okay.
I probably would have tried to do all that myself.
All right, that's it. That's our agenda. Any items that we want to talk about beyond that? Any new business?
Speed limit.
We have more speed limit and we have Claudette. Claudette, go ahead.
There's a new complex off of Flatbush Avenue called Landmark, which intersects with Clifton Avenue and Flatbush. And we need to study that traffic intersection because it's a bad accident waiting to happen. We got people coming up Flatbush, going around that bend, going too fast. You have people coming from the light. You now have people coming from the apartments there, trying to get out, and then you have just a regular controlled stop sign at Clifton. There are no sidewalks. There's gonna be way more pedestrians.
Sight distance toward the left is a problem.
It's a real big problem. Also, the trees are covering up the sign that says Clifton Avenue. When you can't see it. It's just completely covered by trees.
And I know somebody that works at the drugstore there, they have told me that pedestrian traffic is increasing.
Well, and they're putting it, I mean, with that new residence there, it's terrible. It really, it's just gonna get worse. So we really do need to.
Because they're about to open the big part.
Yeah, and we really.
Yeah, so now I represent that property. It's Landmark Place. It's supportive housing for seniors.
Yeah.
Formerly homeless. And we are having an opening actually next Tuesday. So I can send out the information as.
Well,
and I can bring back those comments. If those are trees that are on our property, we can certainly.
Well, no, those trees aren't, they're across the street from your property, but here's the thing, I live on Clifton Avenue, and I literally can see from my house down to the end of the street. I could walk there, but I'm afraid to.
Oh, yeah, and
I certainly would not cross Flatbush Avenue.
Yeah.
So I live there, and I don't want to do it. It's just.
Yeah. Yeah, we, when I was at the city, we did apply for additional funding to extend the Flatbush and Foxhall project all the way up to Landmark Place. I wasn't a representative of Rupco at the time, I just thought it would be a good idea because we have this new residence there. We unfortunately didn't get that funding, but perhaps the city could keep the eye out for being able to extend the sidewalk from Colonial Gardens all the way up to.
Well, at least that, but I really am afraid somebody's gonna get, even with just traffic coming out, somebody's gonna get hurt. It's just that, and it's getting worse.
So we'll send them a note to John, a memo to John, and you'll bring it back to him.
Yeah, I'll bring it back to Rupco tomorrow. It was mentioned, we do have, just so you're aware, there is a bus stop that I think that I don't know if we put in the bus shelter yet. But we also do have two 11 passenger buses that residents have access to. They're underutilized so far, I think. And many residents have cars, but I haven't heard anything about, I've heard from Rupco staff that residents actually tend not to want to leave the property. But I haven't heard, so I'd like to know if they're trying to cross the street or trying to get to Rite Aid. So
I won't divulge names, but I know a couple of people who do live in that complex.
Yeah,
And actually kind of surprised me because I didn't know that they live there. And they were saying, oh, I walked past your house. And I was like, oh, people are using it. Maybe they're not noticing it
yeah,
as much, but yeah, we need to do something.
yeah.
Okay. And you had something?
Yeah, the state law that was passed that would allow for 25-mile-an-hour speed limits.
And 3 foot of space next to your bike, and it's a couple of things.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah.
Yeah, she signed it into law 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago.
I heard that Albany's considering it, and they're gonna take their time in that.
Interesting
process.
problem. I mean, ours area, it's 30 now, right?
It's probably more than 6 weeks ago.
It's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while.
You need enforcement.
It's
You need
not,
enforcement.
You're
You need
gonna-
speed bumps, you need those things that tell you your speed, that, you know, I
You
don't.
need those
speed
things.
feedback signs, you know what, speed bumps, no, speed feedback signs, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not with you.
Yeah.
Speed feedback, yes, bumps.
No,
Why not? Why not speed?
Dangerous.
you never plowed.
And they're hard to plow. And
Public Works Director, you don't want.
Yeah.
We
hard to
put
plow, but I-
one in
There-
or near Hasbrook Avenue. It's a speed
Table.
table.
Oh, the one with the flag that goes down, okay.
Yeah,
How's that working?
I mean, I don't know what the feedback is from DPW, but I've observed, walked there and observed and.
Fire department didn't give you a problem with it?
I don't know. We'd have to get.
Yeah, they kind of snuck that one in. That's not
Joyce
bad.
Lane also has them as well. And there was supposed to be a trapezoidal one on, at the roundabout, I'm sorry, the name of the East St. James. But it doesn't really appear in a trapezoidal fashion. I don't know what happened when it was finally executed, but it was
Yeah, I think that one wasn't.
not as raised, and it's much more gradual than I think.
Okay.
There is one that goes to Colonel Chandler, which I haven't quite figured out. But you're right, yeah, so, but the feedback signs. I'm a big fan of the feedback signs. They actually work, I think, from what I've read.
They do.
What about speed cameras? Is that are they expensive? I just don't know anything about them. I just-
Well, you can't write tickets in New York with a speed camera unless you're in New York City.
Oh, okay, all right.
So they're kind of nice, but, you know,
Could you send a little note, like you put things on the windshield now, like, you know, hey, you're going fast, we know it.
Well, actually, the bridge authority has got cameras on the Kingston Run Cliff Bridge, and tickets are being issued.
really.
I've heard this from my son, his
Is that
bunch
from
of his friends
speeding
got tickets.
or
on
from
the
not
bridge.
paying tolls or whatever?
Both.
Yeah.
They're supposedly down there, they're saying, okay, so you get on at one exit and you get off. Well, they know what the speed is supposed to be. If you get off sooner than that,
Yeah.
you must have been.
Well, it also
The bridge
might
has
be-
only got tolls on one end, so I don't know.
It's interesting. They must have gotten special legislation because for a long time it was, they're not permitted except for New York City. In school zones in New York City.
Guys, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to go. I have to get back to work. So we'll talk to everybody in November.
Okay.
Take care.
You can make a motion to adjourn. We're done.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Second, we're done.
We're done. Have a
Thanks,
good
everyone.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if the common council chooses to go with 25. There's been pushes, but there's always
Who's
pushes.
our council rep?
Barbara Hill.
Probably no. There's you know, there'll be pushback, but,
Well, I know
and the
the
enforcement,
city,
they're not, you know, the cops don't enforce speed limits anyway. So
they recently, I think they
we're not recording now.